Welcome to Vishnu's IAS Academy, Hyderabad, your one-stop destination for UPSC preparation and enabling your UPSC dreams to become a reality. Join our channel, subscribe and follow us so that you are aware of all the latest initiatives that we are launching only to enable your success. With that, let's begin with today's The Hindu newspaper from Hyderabad, where we have a diverse set of UPSC relevant articles. The newspaper opens up, as expected, with a detailed discussion about the Israel-Iran war. Since yesterday, we have seen disturbing imagery, constant exchange of missiles, weaponry, drones between Israel and Iran as the war is only intensifying. The situation seems to be such that now embassies from India and other countries have requested their citizens to vacate Iran, to vacate Israel and all the conflict-ridden areas with immediate effect. In that light, the Indian embassy situated in Tehran says that they are coordinating with the local authorities to enable all Indian citizens to escape from the border areas, because Israel has as of now completely closed its air services. So the only option seems to be to escape from the border towards Armenia. And already more than 100 students are taking that route. With that, they are engaging actively with these Indian citizens to enable them further to take the safest possible routes through the border sites until they return India. But as of now, India has also suggested its citizens to stay where they are, rather than actually running about, because the war seems to be going quite aggressively right now. Having said that, there's another small piece of news from Economy on the left-hand column of the front page, which says that India's trade deficit has dipped down to about $6.6 billion right now, which means that it is generally a situation where our exports are falling quite tremendously. Now, one reason, of course, could be the changing market situation that's going on because of the ongoing war. Another, of course, could be the lot of US imposed tariffs which are changing the nature of supply chains. But what is to be seen is that for the first time since May 2025, we have experienced more than a 30% fall in entire trade deficit ratio. Now, this although has seen a very good and stable performance from the service sector, but typically when you talk about the non-petroleum products, when you talk about the consumer good products, that's one segment which has seen a lot of inflationary pressure. And with that, let's quickly proceed with the other important news articles for the day, primarily situated in your editorial article page. So here we go, and the other important news of the day also somewhere are related to the Israel-Iran war either they choose to talk about some such clauses such as India's nuclear law liability. Then there is one article which talks about India's growing importance in the Bay of Bengal region. So these are certain articles we shall be looking at shortly. Now here is the editorial page, and on the left hand side of the column, and in fact even in the middle article, there has been a repetition of the same issue, how Israel has created this escalation of the war from its side by choosing to attack Iran. The left-hand column talks about that how today most countries across the world do not agree with this aggressive foreign policy shown by Israel, while Israel continues to attack Iran. One of the reasons ideologically behind the attack seems to be coming from the fact that Iran's nuclear ambitions seem to be growing completely haphazard. They are unsystematic. There has not been a proper declaration by Israel to the International Energy Agency or to the International Atomic Energy Agency. But what people are objecting to is that recently Iran was ready to create some kind of a dialogue with the US, where Iran was willing not only to negotiate but also it was willing to declare its nuclear arsenal. But now there is no point in that kind of negotiation, because with active war going on, that dialogue seems to have broken completely. So it is also saying that Israel's unprovoked aggression against Iran right now has seen a kind of regional instability in the West Asian region, which last probably was witnessed during 1973. Now, the article also says that until just 2-3 days back, as more than 370 missiles were being exchanged, we saw how in Israel as well, the oil refinery at Haifa was completely into tatters. It was devastated. At least 24 Israeli have been killed, more than 500 wounded. The war still rages on. Now, it also says that although during the course of the war, Israel may have attained some kind of an upper hand, it is seeing a lot of success when you talk about the air domain or the aviation domain. The air supremacy of Israel is higher, but yet Israel has not been able to attack Iran's nuclear program, but that was the whole intention behind the attack in the first place. So as of now, for Israel, there is nothing much that has been accomplished, only except its anti-terror agenda, which it blames Iran for. So that's one thing coming out. Second thing is that the Prime Minister or the Premier of Israel also says that, Mr. Netanyahu says that this attack and the series of war might also change in a complete regime in Iran. That is also something they are expecting. They do hope that the new regime will be able to cooperate more with Israel in terms of tackling terror outfits like the Hamas or the Hezbollah, which according to Israel have been housed by Iran for a very long time now. So now, although Israel is also making escalations from this side, the article clearly says that for other countries, it is a very pointless aggression that's going on. Already US and Iran were under the 6th round of nuclear talks. Now that prospect has gone away again. So it just adds on to the instability of the region. It just destroys the oil supplies and the basic supply chains across the world. So therefore the article is requesting that today the global powers, especially the United States of America, which also ideologically always supports Israel, should take a leading role and proactively mediate the crisis. That's something the article is suggesting, because we all need law and order in West Asia. After all, economic fallouts are there for every country. Having said that, the main article is more of a repetition. It talks about how Israel's earlier, the aggressive war on Gaza, and today how it's happening in Iran, just shows an intent in Israel to completely dominate the entire West Asia region. That's what the article says. So overall, it is just discussing a little bit history about the previous wars that have happened between Israel and other nations of West Asia. It is just talking about that how today Israel is also trying to create a complete monopoly in that region, and this especially increased after the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu regained power in the recent past. So for UPSC mains, we'll skip this article for now as more developments happen. But another article is more important really. So this is also editorial page, and this talks about India's growing presence. Yesterday we saw an article which spoke about India's rising predominance in the Pacific region in general. India's gaining supremacy. Today we talk about India's leadership acumen, ability, as well as India's rising diplomatic importance in the Bay of Bengal region. What does the article say? The article says that India's trade relationships, economic partnerships with various nations of the Bay of Bengal. Sometimes you can use the word BIMSTEC countries for that. Sometimes you can use other words such as countries which completely lie in the South Asian region. So all these countries are countries with which India enjoys good volume of trade. Why? Because when you talk about India's eastern coast, when you talk about the Bay of Bengal coast, we know it also harbors some of the best and the most commercially viable ports in India. We could name Visakhapatnam, we could name Paradeep, Odisha, we could name Haldia, West Bengal. These have not only grown in commercial importance, but also they provide crucial trading links between India and other countries like Nepal. Then you talk about Bangladesh in particular. Having said that, as India had signed the BIMSTEC, the Bay of Bengal Initiative for multi-sectoral technical economic cooperation, India had also agreed to reduce taxations, tariffs to most of the countries who are a part of the BIMSTEC initiative. So, lots and lots of free trade agreements, bilateral tariff reductions have been going on in the region for a very long time, which is a good thing for India also. But problems started when Bangladesh experienced a complete political coup and political was completely removed from the power, and as the more aggressive leadership took over Bangladesh, there was a complete breakdown of law and order. From this point onwards, India's BIMSTEC you can say equations have also completely transformed. Why? Because initially India was one country which was ready to provide a very massive Bangladesh transshipment facility, which means Bangladesh could have used India's ports, Bangladesh could have used Indian facilities to carry on the trade. This was actually a very good development for the cross-border trade and a lot of opportunities of economic growth for both the people. But ever since the Bangladesh situation scried up, India took back its decision. It cancelled the idea of providing Bangladesh the free transshipment facility access. Does this mean a breakdown of India's leadership position in entire Bay of Bengal region? Further, the article says that today, as we know that Nepal is a great trading partner, Nepal also depends on lots and lots of Indian ports because being a landlocked country, it doesn't have any other option to access maritime trade. Having said that, today, India, when it refused access to Bangladesh to use its transshipment facilities or trade routes, India highlighted professional reasons. India said that already our ports are congested. There is no more place to accommodate any more cargo. Second thing India said was that we already do not have sufficient license system for our own people. So therefore today, because of logistical problems, we are not able to grant any transshipment facility to Bangladesh, and the decision was taken back. But in reality, we also know that of late Bangladesh has shown in fact certain pro-China foreign policy inclination. That was also a major reason behind India taking back its diplomatic offer to Bangladesh. That's one thing. Second thing is that there are many northeastern states also which depend on Bangladesh for their maritime trade access. So in a way, we have axed our own foot also. Indian trade and Indian maritime trade, particularly from northeastern states, have also suffered. Now this also means that if India earlier was playing the role of a regional leader by integrating all these countries of the BIMSTEC region, today as India has taken back its decision, it could mean that India is undermining. It is reducing the whole idea of leading cooperative regionalism of all the countries of South Asia. Now, recently, we know that massive investment from India has gone to the Sagarmala program to improve India's coastal logistics, ports, ship industry and all of that, to improve better connectivity with other countries. Now, on the eastern coast, there has been a massive expansion of maritime trade. It has doubled in the last few years, that's what the article says. But at a regional level, today, whatever has happened in the case of Bangladesh is something that has very negative fallouts. Say, for example, agreed that we do not have a good diplomatic smoothness with Bangladesh right now, but that also means that whenever we decide for an initiative like BIMSTEC, we always say that this is purely for economic reason. That time we commit, that time countries mutually decide that no amount of political, bad chemistry or political up and down will actually spoil the economic initiative that, or the economic reason that goes behind making such summits. But that is broken down today because trade is something that needs regional integration. Whenever you talk about BIMSTEC or such initiatives, we commit that there has to be no condition under which Economic benefits should suffer because economic interests are neutral in nature. They should not depend on political conditions, but that's not happening right now. What is the result? Clearly, the impact is clear. Exports, suppose for example, Bangladesh is leading in export textile garment sector. So the garment sector, which is about 85% of Bangladesh's foreign earnings, is suffering a major hit. When it suffers a hit, a lot of Indians also lose their employment. Let's understand that. Second thing is that today if Bangladesh decides to take alternative routes, say through Sri Lanka or Southeast Asia, it is very expensive in terms of the fuel need, in terms of license and permits. It will take time as well. So which means already the economic decline has begun for our economic trading partner. Then second, for India also, let's understand that when you talk about trade into things such as Bangladeshi goods, garment, plastic, processed foods, all these have a heavy demand in the Northeast Indian states. If access to Indian ports is denied, then what about the demand? What about the inflation that's going to rise in the northeastern states because of that? So therefore, a lot of economic thinkers, a lot of economists are suggesting a reinvigoration of the transshipment facility to Bangladesh, irrespective of whatever political problems we are facing. Let's also understand that maritime trade, sea-based trade, needs a shared infrastructure. So it needs some kind of a commitment to continue despite poor bilateral relationship in terms of benefiting all the countries who exist in that regional BIMSTEC domain. That's what the article is trying to say. It also says that India should clarify, have more clear guidelines about in what situations in future will such transshipment be cancelled or reinstated again. Let's have clear rules rather than cancel whenever we have a poor bilateral relation or reinvigorate whenever we feel the loss. That's a broken strategy. That's the article for you. And then let's proceed further. And there's another very interesting article which is very close to your social justice and social issues, which talks about how in India a basic need which is called the need to be connected to the internet or digitization. Today we say urban India is digital India. Today we say rural Indians are adopting towards more digitization because majority government programs are available and more easily accessed through digital, digital access and to digital knowledge. But is that happening in reality? Article analyzes how in India there are deep inequalities when it comes to internet access. One, when it comes to using internet, people do not have digital skills. There is a huge gap. We do not have them. Why? It says that one of the key sustainable development goal of United Nations, especially the goal 4.41 and 4.42, they talk about one need of the young adult population, youth of the country to have some ICT skills, information communication technology, to take up higher education, to take up global job opportunities and to make use of government welfare policies. Target 4.4.2 talks about how skilled you are in using internet and computer. In India, the data collected from the National Sample Survey Organization has argued that in India, although we are giving people some internet, there has been more investment in allowing people broadband services, but still a study across 3.2 lakh households and 12.99 lakh people talks volumes about how there is a huge inequality when it comes to internet access and the ability to use that, which means digital divide. The divide between those who are literate in computers and information technology and those who are not still is very, very high. For example, 76.3% households have a broadband, but look at the difference. In urban India, it's 86.5, rural India, 71.2. Talks about the rural-urban digital divide, very common problem. But there are variations in internet use across caste, gender and class also. There are certain states in India, particularly states of Delhi, Goa, Mizoram, Manipur, Sikkim, Haryana, Himachal, where 90% of people, households, have an internet connection. There are certain other states like West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh or Odisha, Arunachal Pradesh, less than 70% only have an internet connection. Talking about caste as a very big Indian social reality, caste which still has a huge importance in terms of economic, resource access. It says that there are so many communities such as OBCs, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, here the internet access is much lesser than the national average. It means it's barely about 77, 69 to 64% respectively, quite lower as compared to people from more economic, well-off and upper caste backgrounds. Let's understand that even across gender, we see that when you see the general category, if they have about 84.1% of internet access and ability, majority are men, not women, let alone the transgender population. That's not even figuring in the data as such. Now, the most striking difference is also existing between rich and the poor people. Those who have a per capita consumption expenditure of a higher grade, they are the ones who are experiencing more fluent use of internet, whereas there are those who are coming from the poorer economic backgrounds, the construction laborers, agricultural labor, or people of the informal sector. They are the ones who have much lower access and knowledge about how to use internet. Very interestingly, the article also says around 53% of our 0.6 of our population 15 years and above can use the internet in rural India, and 74% in urban India. Those who can see email, receive emails is also varying according to your rural situation and urban situation. About 37.8% of India's population aged 15 and above can perform basic online transactions. So imagine the lack of internet access till date, how it is variable across different social categories is something important to be seen really. Having said that, now let's proceed. And there was a small thing I would just want you to observe. It's a repetition that how the Financial Action Task Force, the committee which will take care of anti-terror finance, that has regretted, or it has somewhere also felt appalled, it has felt bad about how consistently Pakistan has been using its funds to promote cross-border terrorism in India. They have lamented the Pahalgam terror attack. So that's something you should remember about the FATF. Now, having said that, another interesting news coming from the world news segment is about India-Cyprus ties. Let's remember, Cyprus is one country that is divided into two segments right now. Since 1974, the northern part of Cyprus has been dominated by Turkey, while the southern part, which is officially recognized by the global community as Republic of Cyprus, that is a separate part. Now here, the Indian government has extended its support towards unification of Cyprus, which also is a secret message to Turkey. Why? Because India is supporting Cyprus against Turkey, because Turkey is also one chief ally of Pakistan, which is responsible for terrorism into India. So that is a clear-cut message that has come from Pakistan's clear support to Cyprus. Once again, unification. Also, let's remember that Cyprus had also supported India during Pahalgam attack. Cyprus also supports a permanent seat for India in the United Nations Security Council. Okay, let's remember these two things. Now, having said that, let's quickly skip to two more important articles I would want you to show, and these come on the opinion page. So here come these articles after the sports page, and let's just scroll down quickly to that article. Okay, so that article is coming shortly. Okay, so this is an important article. Why I want you to remember is because of it's quite important geographically and politically. We talk about the Shipkila Pass. We are saying that the Indian government has now decided to open up the Shipkila Pass after a long time. Shipkila Pass is situated in Himachal Pradesh, a very important mountain pass in the Kinnaur district of Himachal. Once used to be a massive trade route between India and Tibet, where lots of import-export activities would happen. Today, as Tibet is a part of China, the trade route is not just about a commercial link between two countries. It is about similarity of culture between nomadic Himalayan communities living on both sides of the border. So today, as India has decided to open up the pass, it just talks volumes about what it means to many communities of scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, who typically come from the so-called vulnerable segment of society, but they share a very similar culture on both sides of the border, whether India or whether you're Tibet. Tibet, the China-occupied Tibet. Now, lots of items of imports from Tibet, typically, animals, or typically things like sheep, including things like, religious literature would be something that would be exchanged from India. It would be about crops like barley and wheat and chickpeas. So there's a huge cultural connection, very unlike the India-Pakistan border where military relations exist. But here it's more about a cultural connect that ties both the regions together. Please remember the location of the pass. It's in Himachal Pradesh in the district of Kinnaur. Now, having said that, there is one last article I just want you to quickly have a look, because I have spoken about something similar 3 days back with you, that today India is trying to liberalize its nuclear liability law. It means in case of a nuclear accident, who will be held responsible? Will it be the supplier's liability completely, or will the supplier not be responsible in case it was a technical error that developed in the system itself, or because of some climate disaster? That's something we are talking about. Remember that India had adopted a program towards its nuclear liability referred to as Civil Liability for Nuclear Damaged Act 2010. It is in line with the Chernobyl nuclear accident, post which the global community had ordered Convention on Supplementary Compensation. The article says sometimes if the disaster, there is a radioactive leakage, improper disposal of nuclear waste, and people suffer, then if the company is not able to provide money, the government should come in and provide some liability to the people who have faced that accident. But because of such tough laws, private companies, particularly from US and Russia, do not readily invest in India's nuclear program. So now, as India is trying to redesign its nuclear program by just making sure that private sector companies are attracted to invest more foreign investment into this sector, let's see whether successfully we are able to liberalize and we are able to privatize our nuclear liability program. Should it happen, it is only good, because it improves India's investment in nuclear energy, a massive need of the hour given the need towards non-conventional energy. But still it is under a debate. That private sector is still not convinced. It still feels that India should clarify more about whether suppliers will be held very, very strictly, or whether there is a kind of exception to the clause, or whether there is a process through which their liability is reduced. It will be discussed again in the parliament, and we are yet to see the fallouts. So with this, I'll take your end for today's Hindu analysis. I'll see you tomorrow with another such interesting session. In the meantime, thank you for being with us. All the best.
Sociology by Anthropology. Anthropology లేదు AFC అంటే anthropology కాదు. Anthropology అంటే